Well, one thing is to not be against yourself. You're made in the image of God. He made every person a masterpiece. I think, not arrogantly, but in the inside, I am a masterpiece. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm strong, I'm talented.
Today, we've got to talk about Joel Osteen, because things just took a dark turn at Lakewood Church. We all know the famous $1 million smile and feel-good message he's preached for 25 years. But behind that massive 16,000-seat stadium, the positive thinking empire is hitting a wall. Between gunfire inside the church, hundreds of thousands of dollars hidden in the walls, and mounting legal pressure, the world's biggest megachurch is suddenly facing a nightmare. A big, shattering change at Lakewood. For over 20 years, Lakewood Church was basically treated like an impenetrable fortress of good vibes. We're talking about a former NBA arena that held 16,000 people every single weekend, packed wall to wall with folks who just wanted to hear that their lives were about to get better. It was bright, it was clean, and the production value was higher than a Hollywood movie set. Nothing bad was ever supposed to touch a place like that. But on a Sunday afternoon in February 2024, the nightmare scenario actually happened. A shooter walked right past security with an AR-15 and started opening fire inside the building. Just pause and think about how terrifying that is for a second. Chaos instantly broke out as families scrambled for cover, screaming and trying to figure out what was happening. Off-duty officers ended up taking down the shooter right there on the scene, but a 7-year-old child ended up critically injured, and another person was shot. It was complete bedlam. In a single afternoon, the stadium wasn't just a place for uplifting music and inspirational talks anymore. It was an active crime scene covered in yellow police tape and surrounded by SWAT teams. For Joel Osteen, this wasn't just a tragic event. It was a total breakdown of everything his brand represented. His entire ministry is built on the promise that if you have enough faith, positivity, and divine protection, will keep bad things away from your life. That's literally the core selling point. So when actual gunfire shattered the quiet inside his own church lobby, it sent massive shockwaves through the entire community. Suddenly, the slick camera setups and stage lighting couldn't hide the harsh reality that real-world violence had breached the gates. In the days that followed, the church had to deal with intense scrutiny over their security protocols, their handling of the situation, and how something like this could even happen in the first place. Joel stood in front of reporters looking noticeably shaken up, trying his best to offer comfort and keep things hopeful. But you could tell something fundamental had changed. You can't just hand out a quick inspirational quote or tell people to hold on to a smile when traumatic events happen on your own doorstep. The invincible image of Lakewood was officially broken, and the public started asking much tougher questions about what was really going on inside those walls. When the illusion of absolute safety shatters, the foundation holding up the entire enterprise begins to show its cracks. The architect of perpetual smiles. How did Joel Osteen end up managing a high-stakes media powerhouse? Well, you have to understand that he never actually planned to be the main guy holding the microphone on stage. Back in the 90s, young Joel was strictly working behind the camera, running the television production setup for his father, Joel Osteen, who originally founded Lakewood Church way back in 1959. Joel spent years editing sermon footage, tweaking lighting angles, working with camera operators, and figuring out what made television audiences connect. He wasn't a trained theologian, he didn't attend seminary, and he certainly wasn't trying to preach in front of crowds. But when his father passed away suddenly in 1999, Joel made a bold call to step up to the podium himself. What happened next completely transformed American media culture forever. Joel took a massive gamble by tossing out traditional heavy preaching. Instead of warning people about judgment, guilt, or fear, he pivoted the entire message toward total encouragement, personal happiness, financial success, and everyday positivity. He essentially re-engineered the whole church experience to feel less like a rigid religious service and much more like a massive self-help conference wrapped inside top-tier pop concert production values. The crowd loved it. Within a few short years, weekend attendance skyrocketed from a few thousand people to over 40,000 regular visitors. By 2005, Lakewood was growing so fast that they spent nearly $100 million renovating the former Compaq Center, a massive sports arena where the NBA's Houston Rockets used to play, turning it into the ultimate modern broadcasting hub on the planet. This wasn't just a local church getting bigger, it was a multi-million-dollar global media empire expanding at light speed. Joel became an instant best-selling author with runaway hits like Your Best Life Now, filling major sports stadiums across the country for his massive Night of Hope tours and broadcasting to millions of screens in over 100 countries around the world. His cheerful demeanor and signature opening phrase, "God wants to bless you," became instantly recognizable worldwide. He built a multi-million-dollar personal brand without taking a formal church salary, relying instead on massive book deals, publishing rights, and private speaking engagements that allowed him to buy $10 million mansions, travel on private jets, and live a flashy lifestyle that rivaled high-profile Hollywood celebrities. The whole setup depended on one crucial factor: absolute, uninterrupted positivity. Every song, every speech, every social media post, and every single weekly broadcast was polished to absolute perfection, ensuring that anyone tuning in felt instantly uplifted and completely stress-free. For 25 straight years, this winning formula worked like absolute magic. Joel wasn't just preaching a simple message. He was running a frictionless corporate engine powered by relentless, unstoppable optimism. But when you build an entire enterprise on the strict idea that life with faith is always smooth sailing, what happens when real-world turbulence, sudden legal investigations, and public scandals finally crash straight into your arena? Scaling a message of endless abundance required an engine powered by relentless, eye-watering wealth. Envelopes in the drywall. If you thought security scares were the only headache Lakewood had to deal with, just wait until you hear about the absolute financial bizarre fest that went down inside the building. Back in 2014, Lakewood Church reported a massive break-in where someone allegedly stole around $600,000 in cash, checks, and money orders right out of the church safes. The police investigated, but the case went totally cold, leaving everyone wondering how that much money could just vanish into thin air. Fast forward 7 years to late 2021. A local plumber named Justin was doing routine maintenance work in a public family bathroom inside the church. He pulled off a wall tile behind a toilet, looked inside the insulation, and saw something that completely blew his mind. Hundreds of envelopes stuffed to the brim with cash and checks. The guy called into a local Houston radio station to tell the story, and the news exploded across the internet in minutes. Police rushed back to the scene, inventoried the stash, and confirmed that the money was directly tied to the mysterious 2014 robbery. Just think about how bizarre that looks to the outside world. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations had been sitting inside the drywall of a megachurch for 7 straight years, and nobody had any idea. While the church had already settled the original loss with their insurance company years prior, the insane visual of cash literally hidden in the walls triggered a wave of relentless viral memes, jokes, and serious internet conspiracy theories. This discovery reignited a massive public debate about how megachurches handle their eye-watering amounts of daily cash flow. People immediately started asking awkward questions. How does 600 grand get lost inside a bathroom wall without anyone noticing? What kind of internal financial controls were actually in place behind the scenes? For a ministry that was already facing constant backlash over Joel's personal wealth, including his $10 million Houston mansion and the controversy over Lakewood taking over $4 million in federal PPP loans during the pandemic, the drywall incident was an absolute PR nightmare. Even though the church wasn't accused of any direct crime in the wall discovery, the damage to their public image was already done. It painted a picture of a massive, bloated organization where staggering amounts of money were moving around so fast that actual fortunes could get lost behind the plumbing. When your entire public identity is based on total transparency, clean living, and divine order, having the police dig hundreds of cash-filled envelopes out of your drywall is a look that positive thinking just can't spin away. In a world where perception is everything, private wealth eventually becomes a public target. The pressure cooker of prosperity. When your whole brand revolves around telling people that faith unlocks immediate wealth, physical safety, and personal comfort, life gets extremely complicated when real tragedy hits your doorstep. This whole concept is what theologians call the prosperity gospel. The idea that if you pray hard enough, stay positive, and sow your financial seed into the ministry, God will automatically bless you with material success and shield you from hardship. For decades, this message was an incredibly easy sell across America. People loved hearing that their best life was waiting for them right now, just around the corner. But here is the ultimate catch. What happens to that theology when an actual crisis crashes right through the front doors of your church? Think about the brutal contradiction Lakewood had to face. When a shooter opens fire inside your building, or when hundreds of thousands of dollars randomly vanish into your bathroom plumbing, or when local floods force people out of their homes while your doors stay locked, the "everything is always great" narrative falls completely flat. Millions of everyday viewers who bought into the dream start waking up and asking some pretty dark questions. If positive thinking and faith act as a divine shield against bad things, why are all these massive scandals and terrifying incidents happening inside the world's biggest megachurch? This creates a massive psychological trap for Joel Osteen. Unlike preachers who talk about enduring struggle, suffering, or navigating hard times through quiet resilience, Joel built his entire empire on pure, uninterrupted sunshine. He literally cannot afford to have a bad day on camera, because showing real vulnerability or admitting that faith doesn't protect you from life's worst nightmares completely breaks the business model. So when real-world disasters strike, he is forced to double down on the same old positive slogans, making him look increasingly out of touch with the actual pain his congregation is experiencing in real time. The public fatigue is real. A whole generation of younger viewers who grew up watching these shiny televangelists are completely over the polished perfection. They see the $10 million mansions, the private jets, and the constant fundraising, and they contrast it with the chaotic reality of the world around them. When the core promise of your message fails to deliver during an actual crisis, people stop seeing you as an inspirational leader and start seeing you as a salesman running a slick corporate operation. Furthermore, social media algorithms have completely changed how scandal travels. Decades ago, a megachurch could manage bad publicity through controlled press releases and selective television interviews. Today, millions of critics, ex-members, and investigative creators break down every single movement, financial disclosure, and pulpit slip-up in real time. Every awkward response becomes a viral soundbite, and every past promise of divine protection gets replayed alongside breaking news footage of police cruisers surrounding the arena. The pressure on Joel Osteen to maintain an unblemished image of continuous victory has turned into an unbearable pressure cooker. As public backlash intensified, the quiet distance between the pulpit and the people grew wider. When the smile won't save you. So, where does that leave a guy like Joel Osteen when the usual playbook completely stops working? For 25 years, whenever controversy knocked on the door, the strategy was simple. Double down on positive vibes, deliver a cheerful TV interview, and wait for the news cycle to wash away the noise. If critics called him out for his massive fortune, he would just smile and say, "God wants everyone to prosper." If people complained about the church's response to natural disasters, he would do a quick PR tour, donate some supplies, and pivot straight back to his regular scheduled broadcasting. But the world in 2026 isn't the same world where Joel built his massive empire back in the early 2000s. Young people who used to fill those 16,000 stadium seats are leaving organized megachurches in droves, completely exhausted by the slick corporate production that feels more like a tech company launch than a spiritual sanctuary. When you layer terrifying safety breaches, hundreds of thousands of dollars hidden in bathroom walls, and endless financial scrutiny on top of a shifting culture, the trademark megawatt grin starts looking less like genuine hope and more like a defensive shield. You can see it in the broadcast footage. The speeches are still polished. The stage lighting is still world-class. But the effortless, untouchable confidence just isn't there anymore. The real problem facing Lakewood Church isn't just one single scandal. It's the slow, painful unraveling of their core illusion. For decades, Joel convinced millions of followers that he possessed the secret formula for an easy, blessed, conflict-free life. But now, every single time a viewer tunes into a service, they aren't just seeing an inspirational speaker on stage. They are seeing a man surrounded by armed security guards, sitting on top of an empire that is constantly fighting off public relations fires. The contrast between the pristine message coming out of the microphone and the chaotic reality happening around the building is getting way too loud to ignore. Joel is essentially trapped in a golden cage of his own making. He can't suddenly pivot to a darker, more grounded or realistic message, because his entire multi-million-dollar machine depends on selling pure optimism to global television networks and publishing houses, but at the same time, continuing to pretend that everything is perfect while the walls are literally cracking around him makes the operation look totally fake to a skeptical modern audience. He is stuck in an absolute no-win scenario, forced to flash that famous smile even as the entire world watches the fortress crumble around him. Now, sitting atop an empire facing unprecedented storm clouds, one final question remains. What lies ahead for America's biggest church? When the final choir notes fade into the massive 16,000-seat arena and the broadcast cameras stop rolling, what actually remains of a religious empire built entirely on stagecraft? Joel Osteen's story isn't just about one guy leading a massive megachurch in Houston. It's a living monument to an entire era of modern American religion. For 25 years, millions of people found genuine comfort, daily inspiration, and a sense of hope under the bright lights of Lakewood Church. To those loyal followers, the incredible production value, the best-selling books, and the constant broadcast engine were just secondary details compared to the personal peace they felt when tuning in every single weekend. But at the exact same time, millions of modern viewers, internet critics, and former believers view the entire operation as the ultimate business model, a multi-million-dollar corporate enterprise that leveraged human vulnerability for private wealth and institutional power. The ultimate tragedy of the televangelist boom is that both of those realities exist at the very same time. Human beings are rarely pure heroes or pure villains, and when you put someone inside a high-voltage media engine for a quarter of a century, the lines between sincere spiritual passion, human ego, and corporate self-preservation become permanently blurred. The terrifying security scares, the bizarre cache discoveries hidden inside bathroom walls, and the non-stop public scrutiny serve as a stark reality check. No amount of stadium glory, massive book contracts, or private security detail can shield a person from the unpredictable, messy reality of the real world. Stripped of the grand camera angles and perfect studio lighting, Joel is ultimately left facing the same fundamental questions every leader must answer when looking back at a lifetime of high-stakes choices. What this entire saga really uncovers isn't just the story of Lakewood Church. It is a giant mirror held right up to our culture. It exposes how desperately people hunger for quick answers, endless encouragement, and larger-than-life figures who promise that life will always be easy and prosperous. The empire was only able to reach these staggering heights because millions of people desperately wanted to believe in the illusion. That dynamic created a mutual dependency where the crowd demanded non-stop optimism, and the pastor on stage was all too willing to deliver it every single week. The breaking of that picture-perfect mask isn't just a personal crisis for Osteen, it's a massive wake-up call for an entire culture that elevated a flawed human being to an impossible pedestal. As the modern media landscape continues to shift and the era of untouchable megachurch icons comes to a close, one fundamental truth becomes impossible to ignore. Empires built purely on slick marketing and friction-free promises eventually collide with reality, leaving behind a hard lesson about the danger of wrapping simple faith inside a massive corporate enterprise. The stage lights can turn back on, and the arena doors can open every weekend. But the ultimate legacy of this movement will always be defined by a single truth. When maintaining an illusion of perfection becomes more important than facing raw reality, the stage stops being a sanctuary and starts becoming a prison. When the audience goes home and the applause quiets down, every leader has to step off the platform and stand in the clear light of reality. If you want to stay updated on crazy stories like this, hit that subscribe button.